Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the one series we absolutely love to watch and get excited every week to see. It is none other than the SimRacing International UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. We are back once again for another round of intense racing action, and today marks round number 3 of the championship, indeed of season 16. Goodness me, it's been going for so many years, is it not? And we are here in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. A circuit widely regarded as perhaps the ultimate testing circuit year in, year out for many an international motorsporting series, including the likes of Formula 1 and GT World Challenge Europe. It is a circuit that spans the best part of 2.9 miles, and over the course of its best part of 15 corners, it is a circuit that leaves little to question when it comes to driving and also car ability. You've got chicanes, you've got sweepers, you've got straights, you've got a little bit of everything here, and a little bit of everything is exactly what our drivers will need to have in their pocket if they want to come away victorious here today, as we get set to cover all the racing action in this post-round broadcast. To be clear, this broadcast that you're tuning into right now is live, and hello to you guys and girls tuning in, because of course you can be catching this live on the official SimRacing International YouTube channel. Indeed, just go to youtube.com and search for SRI, Alternative SimRacing International, and you can be in there in the YouTube chat, tuning in along the likes of many an individual, including Ivan Sander and also Grant Miller. But the broadcast itself, whilst this is live, it is post-round, because the racing action you're seeing isn't actually live. The racing action occurred as of Sunday, this weekend just gone, so that would have been none other than Sunday, the 12th of October 2025, but we are bringing it to you as if it were live here today for all your viewing pleasure. On our schedule then, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1. We're currently in the midst of qualifying, and we're going to be heading straight to the racing action in approximately what will be a 6 minutes time, our 60-minute feature race. And the best part, I do believe, of 40 drivers here today, all looking to give it their all, and come the end of it, we'll see who comes away victorious across our 4 classes of Premier, Elite, Pro and Evo. Indeed, 4 absolutely superb classes out there, all with very close championship fights going on, and more on that in due course as we bring you updates on the standings after the second round. As we head into this round, of course, all your racing action will be brought by myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be your commentator all the way through the season. But then, heading into what is this round, we can see, last time out, we were in Mexico at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez on the 5th of October, and there, well, it definitely was many a surprise to be certain when it came across the classes, and we saw a big shake-up of the standings, particularly in what was the Pro class, and also perhaps in the Elite class. In Premier and Evo, things seem to have stabilised a little bit, and indeed we do start to have some emerging early favourites. But coming into this round at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, it'll be interesting to see whether those favourites can stay one step ahead of the competition, or whether they may find themselves being caught up to, and perhaps being led wayward at the wayside. But as we look ahead into the next couple rounds, well, of course, next up will be the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the 19th of October, and then we will complete the first half of the season at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg on the 26th of October in round 5 of 10. But as we come into this round, how do the standings stand after 2 rounds? We begin with the Elite, and as we can see here in the Elite standings, well, it's Joe Nathan who leads the way. The Rage Against the Game esports driver yet to secure a win. However, what he has done is picked up 2 third places, and that's why he's leading by 10 points over DCW Racing's Richard Simnor, who after a brilliant second place in our season opener, had his reality brought back down to earth slightly. It was 6th place last time out in Mexico, and he'll be hoping for a little bit more. The same can be said for Philipp Schwörke, the Venari Racing driver who ran away to victory at the Red Bull Ring in our season opener, but round number 2 and 8th place there really did not do him justice, and indeed a further 2 points behind our top 2. Ryan Davis at Empire Motorsport sits in 4th, having picked up his first podium of the season last time out, ahead of Casper Brockner, with Andy Jones, Helder Gonzalez, Jacko Taylor, Ulrich Scholl, and Joe Newman completing your Elite top 12, and just outside the top 12, yet scoring points, Raz Harper and Daniel Shilcock. Coming to the Pro class, meanwhile, and here you can see the complexion, well, it's very, very close. It's 148 points apiece, and intriguingly, this is the weirdest combination, I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I've ever seen in my history of commentary. A 1st and an 8th, or the reverse of that, for the Dexterous Motorsports driver of Mikey Story and Empire Motorsports Nathan Scott, mean they are tied after 2 rounds. That's not normally a combination you hear. You normally hear it's a double podium, including a winner piece of drivers, but no, a 1st and an 8th. I don't know how they managed to make that happen, but that is how they're level. And then it's 8 points to Krista Halsoy for Tractix Racing, who started to grow on form, and indeed, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez did not show the form that he's been building. Christian Maltrex sits in 4th, and indeed has started to build a campaign, only a further 2 points behind, ahead of Christian Furs, who really leads the rest of the pack there does the Englishman for Panda Split Motorsports. You can see there Ibsen Sander is only 2 points behind, and it's a further 8 points to Darren Sharples, with Peter Cox, Giles Lepet, and Cy Anthony completing your Pro top 10. And outside the top 10, round off the top 12, it's Nathan Anstis and Mark Collicott. Coming to the Premier class, and here in the third of our driver classes, it's Samuel Clark, who started to pave the way on 190 points after a second in the season opener and a win last time out. And the Briton right now is pulling away with the Smiling Swede of, not the Smiling Swede, the Smiling Swiss, I should say. My goodness, my geography is terrible today. I'm understanding the flags as well. But the old dudes in cars, blue driver Hendrik Zilke currently sits in second place, a further 28 behind. Alan Lever in third, winner of the season opener, but had a very difficult time in Mexico last time out with 10th place. The UKSimRacing Mansell driver sits in third, and we'll be hoping for a lot more today, as otherwise he'll be under major pressure from Ricardo Luis Pereira, the SRI Privateers of the Caribbean driver, getting much closer, only 2 points behind. Ostergraf sits in fifth at Active Sim Sports, and then we do see Luke Sherlock, who has put in some great performances so far, particularly with that 5th place last time out. Well, he'll be hoping for a little bit more out of the asset box today, because if not, he'll have John Watt right behind him, the SRI with same privateer Ryan driver. There'll be Richard Jones hot on his heels, with Wayne Douglas and Daniel Pays completing their top 10. And outside the top 10 of the Premier, round off the top 12, it's Joe Sparrow and Steve Hughes. Going on to the Evo class, and here we can see in the last of our classes, not to be forgotten about, it's Edward Berry, who is storming away, much like Samuel Clark in Premier, but it is in Evo, where Edward Berry now has opened up a 50-point lead over Max Galgay, the man who was surprised he picked up a podium in race number 1. Well, I think he was a little bit surprised as well. He couldn't make it 2 podiums back-to-back in race number 2 of the season, the Split Track Esports driver, and he's got to give pursuit against the UK SimRacing Hill machine. Joel Loudon sits in third for SRI with Sabre Privateer Ryan, and 138 points there, only 2 behind, and only 6 ahead of Richard White, with Simon Hartley completing your Evo top 5. Jordan Jones sits in 6th ahead of Daryl Giacovelli, with Thomas Weston, Paul Maffey, and Joseph Preston round off the top 10, and only outside the top 10 based on result countback, it's Carl Tivoli ahead of Gareth Newton. As for the team standings, well, we're going to focus on the top 10, and starting with your top 5, here we can see Dexterous Motorsports have opened up an early lead of 338 points to Empire Motorsports 292, and then it is a relatively similar delta to UKSimRacing Mansell sitting in third before all the teams start to get very close to each other, including DCW Racing and Old Dudes in Cars Blue, with the DCW outfit only ahead based on result countback. From the 264 of Old Dudes in Cars Blue, it's then to the 240 of Tractix Racing, who are 240 points there, only 6 ahead of SRI Sabre Privateer Ryan. It's further 2 to UK SimRacing Hill, with Venari Racing and Slow and Steady Racing completing your top 10. It is very razor tight, and in 11th place at 192 points is Old Dudes in Cars. Casper Rotner and Daniel Pays, the 2 drivers there, and they really lead the charge of the rest of the field. But right now it seems to be a top 3 that's gradually pulling away, and then everybody else is squabbling over the remainder of the spots in the top 10, or at least that's the narrative after 2 rounds. But playing host today, of course, is the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya's Grand Prix circuit, located near the city of Montmeló in the Barcelona sector of the Catalonian region of Spain. And as our drivers get ready to go racing here, a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just a fantastic simulator, but also the brilliant track maps that come with it. And of course, we are now racing on what is technically a vintage layout of the Grand Prix circuit, as it was recently revamped, with La Caixa hairpin at turn number 10 being converted to a much more sweeping hairpin compared to the format you see here, which is a much sharper hairpin. But they will be racing on the layout used for Grand Prix racing in the likes of Formula 1 and GT World Challenge, all the way up to 2021, after which, of course, we have seen the reshaping of the turn 10 hairpin and also a slight reshaping of the turn 14-15 chicane. But around here you can see the variety of the circuit, there's no doubt about it, and how tricky this is going to be to get absolutely right from the outset. But in terms of our rules, because we can't go racing without them, this is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 60% for all races. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format shall be used, with drivers having 4 flying laps available to them, and that qualifying session is just about to end. As for our race, it shall commence via a double foul rolling start, as it's a tradition of the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship, with there being 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Each driver has 1 fast repair available, and if a driver gets 20 or more instant points, we will see a drive-through penalty. If they get to 30, they'll be disqualified, and we did see one of those in Mexico last time out, and that was a big surprise, and all race shootings shall be conducted post-race. But let's make our way back to circuit side then, ladies and gentlemen, because it is already time to make our way to the grid, and as we do see the circuit falling silent, it won't be for long. along before it's going to be roaring to the tune of GT3 machinery, and this is how they all line up for what is your third round of the championship. Well, Richard Simnor takes his first pole position overall and an elite for this season for DCW Racing. Well done to him, and takes pole position by 3 tenths over pro pole sitter of Stephen Donnelly. The Irishman there for JSD Motorsports just ahead of DDK Racing Team's Charles Philipp by 300ths, with Rage Against the Game Esports' Joe Nathan once again missing out on pole position and elite overall, but starting 4th then, looking to add another podium to his retinue. Behind them, we will see starting in 5th place. It will be Andy Jones for DCW Racing ahead of Nathan Scott for Empire Motorsport, with Daniel Shilcock for Tractics Racing just outpacing there. Not Colin First. My goodness, I say that every time. It's going to become a running meme at this point. Christian First, there we go. The Panda Spec Motorsports driver starting in 8th place, head of Krista Halsoy for Tractics Racing and Pegasus Sim Racing's Ivan Sander rounds of your top 10. Outside the top 10, we do then look to 11th place, and we will see Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars ahead of Christian Maltrek for Mirabaka MA70 Esports. Behind them, we will then have Jack Barker for Made for Racing. There's a better qualifying session today. We're right up there inside the top 20 ahead of Mikey Story for Dexterous Motorsports, who has a nightmare qualifying session to the contrary, starting in 14th place and what equates to 9th in the pros. Well, that's a surprise and, well, a crazy one to be certain. Now, Ricardo Luis Pereira, we are still working to try to fit his entire name onto the grid then. We do apologise, because we did promise that Ricardo would have that for this broadcast, but unfortunately some technical issues have presented it. Well, the SRI Privateers of the Caribbean driver, he takes what is there a brilliant pole position in the Premier Class, and well done to the Portuguese driver. He's looking very quick indeed. Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Mansell sits in 16th place, just behind, and it'll be Mark Collicott for DCW Racing and Joe Sparrow for JSD Motorsports, who round off your top 18. Then completing your top 20, it's Helder Gonzalez for Tractics Racing and Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports. Outside of top 20, starting 21st, it's Cy Anthony back of the grid after missing Mexico. The UK Sim Racing Price driver there starting 21st, just ahead of Dan Sharples, with the Old Dudes of Car Blue driver then having to give way to your pole sitter in the Evo class of none other than Richard White. A brilliant effort from him for UK Sim Racing Mansell to put himself on pole ahead of Alan Lever for UK Sim Racing Mansell, whose woes continue, it would seem, in qualifying after Mexico. And, well, we then do have Thomas Weston, who starts 25th there in the number 98 machine, second of your Evo drivers. Richard Jones starts 26th for Slow and Steady Racing. He'll look to make some progress quickly, because otherwise he'll have pressure for the Old Dudes in Cars pair of Hendrik Zilka and also Daniel Pays. We then do have Austin Graff starting in 29th for Axis Sim Sports, ahead of James Connolly for UK Sim Racing Hill. And outside the top 30, we have none other than Luke Sherlock, the privateer, ahead of Joel Loudon, who starts in 3rd for the Evo drivers for SRI 7 privateer Ryan. He's ahead of Jordan Lee Jones, who starts from the pit lane, the DWR Sim Coach Setups driver, then being followed up by Noah Blackwell for SRI 7 privateer Ryan. We'll then have none other than Cy Hartley starting in 35th for DWR Sim Coach Setups, ahead of Carl Tivoli, with Slow and Steady Races Alex Brown 37th, ahead of JSD Motorsports, none other there than Joseph Preston. Completing top 40, it would be Edward Berry for UK Sim Racing Hill, and then Darian Giacovelli, and I believe, ladies and gentlemen, it will then be Darryl Giacovelli 41st, ahead of none other than Yavi Sierra, and last but not least, it will be Wayne Douglas, your 43rd starter. Well, we made our way through that grid, and in good time as well, because you know what time it is. It's time to go racing, and it's a Richard Simnor to take us to the grid for 60 minutes of racing here at none other than the Catalunya circuit. And it's lights out, away we go here as Richard Simnor gets us underway for 60 minutes of racing in Spain. And, well, as he gets launched down towards turn 1, there's been a big incident towards the back of the field. Looks like a couple tries to get caught up out the final corner. But meanwhile, everyone towards the front survives as they roar and romp their way into the opening couple of bends. Charles Philipp there under a bit of pressure as he battles side by side with, I believe, Nathan Scott. Gets turned sideways, goes sideways and drags with it there. The Tractics Racing car. Oh, no! It's all gone wrong. There's multiple cars off here. And, well, it's an absolute nightmare start for many a driver. I'll try and understand exactly who got caught up in what in due course, but not the way anybody wanted this to start. And right now, as we do see Andy Jones, he's having a relatively peaceful start to this race. Well, Thomas Weston, he's leapt all the way up into the Evo lead as a result of the chaos and carnage that happened in the mid-pack of the field for turns 1, 2 and 3. And right now, Weston battling, under braking. Who's that? That is a car coming sliding on through. That is Nathan Anstis? No, I don't think so. I think that's Richard White's car getting caught up there. It's absolute confusion and chaos again coming coming down to the braking zone for turn number 5. This race start has been an absolutely messy one, and goodness me, it's been a long time since we've seen that much chaos on the opening lap of a 60-minute race here in the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. But still, sometimes these things happen, and right now it is happening plenty. But as all the drivers bring themselves around, there's battling further down here is Darryl Giacomelli. With Darren Giacomelli right with him here. Well, the two teammates from the Swaziland team, they roll the way onwards, and right now side by side in towards what will be the hairpin here. Well, they're fighting, but I think Darren is going to back off of Darryl, and meanwhile, we can see there, Yavi Sierra looking to get involved as well. I do also believe we have an Aston Martin a bit further back, trying to get involved in that fight. Couldn't quite discern who that was, as we see Jordan Jones here. Well, right now he's listed as a lap down, but that's because he started from the pit lane. He will be upgraded to being on the lead lap shortly. He finds himself battling with Simon Hartley. But from the very back of the field towards the very front. One lap complete, and these guys, I think they're looking in their rearview mirrors and wondering, where is half the field gone? Well, we'll explain very shortly where half the field has gone, because Richard Simnor still leads ahead of pro leader Stephen Donnelly, and then we've got Joe Nathan and Andy Jones. That's your top 4, and it is one pro in amongst all the elites. Nathan Scott sits in second of the pro drivers right now, with Krista Halsoy for close company. As they roll the way out, Mikey Story then comes around, the Dexterous Motorsports driver there in the lovely livery machine. Does have that rather waxing leather approach to it, and once he roars his way out of turn number 4 and in towards 5, right now for Story, definitely things are starting to come together. A bit further back, here is your lead battle for the Premier class, and it is Premier Pack aplenty, because we've got Clark, Zilka, Graf, Jones and Hayes. They're all together and separated by only 1.5 seconds. There they all are in all a single screenshot, and indeed if you want to get a good photo of them right now, time's the time to get one, because they're going to be fighting for a bit, and I'm sure this field is going to gradually expand as Graf's on the outside there in his Ferrari 296. Richard Jones trying to poke up the inside immediately as they make the way in towards turn number 7. It's Jones defending hard on the inside to try and confirm the move. He gets it, McGrath now on the attack here as they roar the way up the hill. We jump aboard with the Ferrari driver here, and well, the Axis SimSport machine right now will have to tuck it behind as they make the way up towards turn number 10. It's a short run, and as they roar the way in towards the braking zone here for turn number 10, what could Graf do at this point? Well, I think he's just got to try and pull his thoughts together here and think, right, fighting, but if we fight too hard, then Zilka and Clark are going to pull away, because this Premier class is looking very close here today in Spain, perhaps more so than any other class here, albeit that is no bearing on how the stewards have deemed the classes at the start of the season, but you do see these natural fluctuations, and every so often there will be a circuit, typically a more balanced circuit, such as here at Barcelona-Catalunya, where you will see the whole field brought together very quickly, and that's exactly what we're envisioning as Graf roars his way down towards turn number 1. But as he does so, well, we're having a bit of change going on further down the order as Darryl Giacomelli right now, he's behind teammate Darian, and well, we can see Mark Collicott there right in the long queue as they all make the way out of the chicane. But into the pits comes Darryl Giacomelli. Perhaps there's an issue with the car, we haven't quite seen what's happened, but he is making an adventure to the pits, and as he does so, well, that's going to put his race to a very much backward degree. Back towards all the fighting in the Premier class here, and the reason why the Evos are ahead of the Premiers in the Tyrant Tower is because we have had a Evo driver set a fast lap compared to a Premier driver. That's why you're seeing that shake up. And as we can see, Austin Graf gets side by side here versus Van Sander. He's trying to pick his way through. As we do show you those overall top 35 standings on the left-hand side of your screen there. These two fighting, and Graf at the inside there of the BMW driver, who right now seems to be going backwards slightly rather than forward. But it's going to be a busy one for the stewards to pick apart, we can definitely tell you that, and we're going to try and get some replays of what happened in short order, and indeed, I do believe our replay highlight reel is absolutely jam-packed. And that's not always a good thing, to be fair, but today it's definitely gone wrong for a few drivers. But in fact, speaking of which, we can start with our replays, and we are going to kick off by trying to understand what exactly happened to Alex Brown and Wayne Douglas. As we do get set to take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. Now this is where it all went wrong for Alex Brown and Wayne Douglas as they went green flag racing. It was through the final corner now. Did somebody go around? Yes, Brown lost it. He lost the rear on cold tyres, and Douglas tried to take evasive action and just got collected there, and that's how it all went wrong for them right at the start of the race. We then had even more drama only moments later. This was Charles Philipp Hertz getting elbowed out, and well, Philipp Hertz was side by side here going through the opening couple of corners, and as he did so, well, get escorted there, and I think it was all over the place between all these drivers, and indeed very hard to tell who exactly was at the core of it all, although Philipp Hertz was definitely right there. And when we take a look back from another angle here, can we get a better view of it? Christian Maltrek wasn't too far behind, so we will see Maltrek here coming to the scene of the incident. In fact, I think some drivers in front checked up there, put the brakes on to try and stop it, creating a domino effect, and the drivers behind them didn't have time to react. Maltrek was one of them, and he ended up essentially pinballing his way onto the back of one of the cars in front, and I think that was Van Zander's car that he hit on the back in particular, so a bit of BMW on BMW contact there, but indeed a part of a much bigger picture. But as we also take a look from Daniel Schilcock's perspective, this was the on board with Schilcock, and well, he was right here as he did see, well, that was Philipp Hetz coming loose, and Schilcock was the Mercedes driver with him. Now, it looks as though Philipp Hetz had lost the rear of the car coming out the corner. We don't know if that was because of contact that aided him, and Schilcock just happened to be all in the mix of it. We also had this for Carl Tivoli. Tivoli was a bit further back, and in fact he'd avoided all the chaos between Brown and Douglas. Oh, I got tapped on the rear there, and that sent him all the way around and skid into the barrier from the Porsche that tapped him on the rear. So for Carl Tivoli, it was a nightmare moment for him, and indeed plenty of nightmares. And it wasn't quite over then, because we had this happen for Luke Sherlock as he made his way on around. What exactly happened to Sherlock? Into the braking zone, and as he did, the car went straight on the Pennzoil machine, just on brakes, and I think it was caught up in some earlier contact, and in the end the car struggling to stop, and he had to bring it back on. Well, we also had this happen for Luis Pereira on the opening lap, and this was coming down in towards the Turn 5 hairpin. Side by side here, battled Aston Martins, and that was a car coming loose very quickly. And my good lord, that was a Ferrari sliding across the road, and well, coming to a standstill there, and it was not a happy moment for James Connolly, who was the man who got caught up in all of that. And well, James Connolly, who will try and get the on board with here. Here was your Ferrari driver make his way through for UKSimRacing Hill. In fact, this was not the driver who got caught up there. And looks like it was a Ferrari in front, I think. We're trying to understand who exactly that was who got escorted all the way across the road. But James Connolly there coming through the scene of the incident, and we'll just witness it all play out. And then there was even more madness as they came out of the corner. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't got too much time for more replays, so we are going to go back to your live racing, as otherwise we'll be in replay heaven all the way through the rest of this race. So as we come back to live racing, we've already have missed the best part of 3 laps after we did leave it, but that's the way it has gone. We've got plenty more to come, surely, as the clock already has trickled down to 52 minutes remaining. And, well, a very difficult one to pick apart all that, Richard Simnor says, and I 100% agree with him there. That's probably the best way it can be summarised in a single sentence. And indeed, Richard Simnor right now, your leader, I think at the time, he must be thinking to himself, okay, if they've all taken each other out, that just makes this race a little bit easier for me. I'm not going to be one to complain, although it will get a bit lonely up the front, although Joe Nathan is going to try and chase him as much as humanly possible. And whilst they make the way down the start-finish straight, nothing between them at the moment. And these drivers absolutely pushing each other onwards. Now, we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including, but not limited to, Simon Hartley, also to Cryfields, also to Richard Simnor, who we said hello to technically only months ago, also to Securia566, who's cheering on Samuel Clark, who is still your Premier Class leader at this time, with Hendrik Zilka and Richard Jones still following in there. Lovely to see all 3 of them together. We also say hello to Sir Bottlejob or Jack Barker. So let's say hello to Jordan Jones there, and well, it's always good to have Jordan tuning in. But as everyone makes their way on around, well, you can imagine at this point, will there be thoughts about strategy this early on? The answer is possibly, just because of the damage that's been done to so many cars, and naturally everybody wants this to be a one-stop race where they can. So I'm hardly looking for a move on Darren Giacovelli, can't quite find it. Battle of McLaren's here, and well, Giacovelli definitely has a lot of front-end damage, but it doesn't seem to be hurting him under braking or rotation. It just seems to be blunting your straight-line speed. It's normally the way it goes with your front-end damage. It normally hurts top speed on the straights because you increase the drag coefficient of the car. Alternatively, what ends up happening, you might lose a little bit of turning effect on the car. But it does seem as though right now Giacovelli's got all the turn he needs as Hartley tries to go around the outside. That's brave. You can go around the outside to be fair, Repsol bend, but the problem is you've got to go for a much wider circumference of the corner to set up the inside of the hairpin, so it doesn't always work. And Darren Giacovelli shows you what you need to do when it drives on your outside, and it is just nail the corner and naturally force your rival to go wider and wider. And well, there played is our 4th place runner in the number 30 McLaren, keeping the 007 behind. And well, Simon Hartley right now watching on and looking to go on the offensive as soon as he can. Jonathan Philipp Schwörke, meanwhile, he dives up the inside of Carl Tivoli in towards turn 5. And remember, Philipp Schwörke was caught up in that open lap altercation. And right now for him, he's trying to pick up all the pieces once again and make his way through the field as quickly as he can. Though understandably, I would imagine he won't be too impressed with how things have played out. And well, speaking of change afoot, Simon Hartley has actually found his way past Darren Giacomelli into the turn 10 hairpin. We left it for a brief moment. He suddenly made that move magically happen. And now his teammate Jordan Jones wants to try and get involved, as Austin Graf, meanwhile, he's having some slight technical issues. He keeps jumping up and down the order, and hopefully that's not a sign of, something to come. As if it is, that's going to be absolutely gutted, because we do love to see the Access Sim Sport driver do well, and indeed he has proven to be one of the big contenders so far this season in the, Premier class. But as we do see the battling going on here, let's take a brief look back and see exactly how Hartley was able to make that move happen. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, for a quick replay. So this was Simon Hartley only moments ago. Gets a good run out of turn at number 9, heading down towards turn number 10, went onto the brakes. Classic move under braking here, went all in towards the apex, and well, I think the writing was on the wall there for Darren Giacomelli, and well, Jordan Lee Jones says, can I come through too? And I think Darren said, no, mind your business, because the way he went for that, Jordan Jones, I think he was hoping that his teammate was going to give him a little bit more room to play with there, so that battle is going to continue. Let's head back to your live racing. As we do come back to it, plenty more to come, of course. It's not as though we're not going to only see 1 or 2 fights here today. We're going to see plenty, although there is the running joke with regards to the Spanish circuit that if you take away the S and make it silent, that summarises the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. It's a painful circuit. It definitely is quite an aggressive circuit to tyres, as Jack Barker is finding out here. Although, to be fair, we see him here battling side by side with Helder Gonçalves. And, well, when was the last time we saw Jack Barker having a good time in that Lamborghini this season? And the answer is we haven't so far. He's having a good time today, however, running in 5th place in the Pro Class right now as a Sir Bottle Job machine, and he is absolutely on the attack. The only problem is he's got one of his old favourites behind him, and in fact he's got 2 of them. And right now, indeed, if anybody remembers the first Harry Potter movie, or indeed I think one of the later Harry Potter movies, let me correct myself there, I think it's the 5th one, Order of the Phoenix, it's always the situation where Professor McGonagall goes, why is it always you 3 when trouble happens? And well, name a more common trio here other than Jack Barker, Cy Anstey and Nathan Anstis, all in the Pro Class and fighting over 5th place. I dare you, it's absolutely brilliant to see. And Nathan Anstis is on the back of this right now. He's watching on and looking to try and get involved as much as he can. Meanwhile, Richard Jones battling here with Hendrik Zilka. So Samuel Clark is being given a bit of a reprieve in the lead of the Premier Class as we do look to their fight. Hold up a second. Oh, no, that's not right. No, that is not good at all. And that is a traffic jam there at turn number 5. And it looks as though, well, somebody got turned around. I think Luke Sherlock's got turned around, and in amongst all the madness, Austin Graf getting collected as well. But he ended up in the gravel. I don't know how he managed to eject himself out that wide. Well, Joel Loudon also got caught up there. Was the Evo driver. All ended up in a bit of arrears. I'm amazed there's any front and left of Luke Sherlock's car at the moment, because that car has definitely been bruised, beaten and battered, and it has not been into the pits for a fast repair. So it looks as though they've perhaps built that car out of titanium at the front compared to everything else. Or was it an X-Men? Is it adamantium, I believe, that Wolverine's made out of with his claws? But right now, I can definitely tell you the BMW of Luke Sherlock seems to be absolutely indestructible, although I wouldn't want to test that too much. As everyone comes towards the end of the first quarter of this race, back towards the very front, and what you can see here is that right now Nathan Scott is on a charge there in a slightly different livery for today, UKSimRacing colours, but I think he's decided to go without all the logos for a bit of an aerodynamic drag reduction as much as possible, and it makes no difference at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see the Haribo machine of Stephen Donnelly still leading pro at the moment, but Nathan Scott is right there with him as they come out to turn number 4 and in towards 5. Now, the Irishman here going as defensive as possible for JSD Motorsports, coming out off the apex and coming on around. He's definitely looking to try and keep his head cool. And heading in towards turn number 7 he goes through the kink of 6. There's no real opportunity there for Scott to get close. We are definitely seeing the differences in these two machines now. With regards to this Ford Mustang having a bit more acceleration in these low speed corners, which we do expect, given the fact the balance of points normally does gravitate towards the Aston Martin being a little bit weaker, and it needs to have a higher IPM in order to get the most most out of its engine compared to the Ford Mustang. However, it does seem as though the Aston Martin is the stronger in the corners of these braking zones. The Mustang being a bit of a proverbial boat, if you will, and meanwhile the Aston Martin being a little bit smoother through these corners, particularly when there's a lot of load on the outside tyres, and that is why Nathan Scott is able to stay so close through the corners, is because his car just naturally has a lot more cornering potential rather than trying to lug the big old bit of American muscle through each and every apex, particularly at the chicane there at turns 14 and 15. But they come towards the end of another lap. They go on to lap number 10, and once they do so, we need to give a shout out to Tom Weston, or Thomas Weston as he's known for, because right now the number 98 driver is leading Evo by the best part of 25.2 seconds. He hasn't got away without damage, we can definitely tell you that. You can see the front bumper of the car is slightly bruised. However, the point is right now the Evo leader is roaring off into the distance here, and well, he's been able to stay out of trouble where everybody else in Evo seems to have been caught up in some degree of trouble at some point. And sometimes that's the way you've just got to work it. You've just got to steer clear of all the drama and then hope it's all going to work out for you. And on this occasion, for Thomas Weston, it definitely is working out so far, but we've still got the majority of the race to go. So let's not praise him too highly yet, because it could all go wrong before it's over. Speaking of things being over, it's over to some replays of what happened at turn number 5 involving James Conley and a few other drivers. And here we go. Now, this was on lap number 6 initially. This was James Conley making his way back onto the circuit after the excursion to the grass. This was before that incident. A little bit later, however. In fact, I think we need to go to lap number 8, and it was Ricardo Luis Pereira was caught up here. Now, what exactly happened? Under braking, goes into braking zone, car behind sweeps in, Austin Graf there just tries to turn in, so that explains a little bit. It was the Aston Martin he was battling with, that was Joe Sparrow who he got caught up with, and then Sierra coming in to see the incident, so did Luke Sherlock, and so did Joel Loudon, and they all came through in different regards. Well, this is what it looked like on board with Luke Sherlock as we ride aboard the dashboard of the 119 Privateer Pennzoil machine. And when he came down into the braking zone there, see Graf going sideways. He'll then see Luis Pereira going sideways, trying to get the car righted. And Sherlock in the end gets knocked on the backside there by a car, and that was Wayne Douglas coming straight into the back of him, I do believe. So that explains the story between them. Let's make our way then, ladies and gentlemen, back to our live racing. As we come back, we come to the onboard here with Thomas Weston for a brief moment before he makes his way down that start-finish straight. He's looking definitely to be in control right now, as we mentioned only moments ago. We'll come towards the end of the opening third of the race, but there's still a long way to go. Now, speaking of battles that are still brewing, the battle for 5th place in Pro is definitely at full health right now. Jack Barker, Sight Anstey and Nathan Anstis continue to push each other along. Anstis runs a little bit wide there, and don't think he enjoys the dirty air of the cars in front of him. And as they head in towards what will be turn number 4, well, right now for dear Nathan, it does seem to be one of those where he's got to be patient. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting up with both Nathan Anstis and also Sight Anstey quite recently. I would tell you right now, they are great friends off the circuit. Indeed, they have a very respectable rivalry between them on the circuit, as Sight Anstey tries to go round the outside of Jack Barker. Does he get it done through turn 5 in towards 6 and 7? The answer is not quite, or he's going to try and force it here under braking as the UKSimRacing driver. Barker's still side by side. It's brilliant racing, but he gets a little bit of power oversteer there coming out of 7. That's going to give Anstis the confidence, and Anstis says, right, if Sight can do it, I can do it too. Through turn 9, that's a brave place to go, and Jack Barker right now, to be fair, is not being walked over here. He is absolutely digging in the trenches, and as they make the way in towards turn number 10, he's going to hold that inside line for the hairpin, but he's not going to get the power down as easy. Anstis now goes too wide with into 11. It gets scrappy there. As you can see, Anstis trying to clip his nose back in. He just about squeezed it in. Barker gives him the space to cooperate. He could have slammed his nose shut there, and we would have sent both drivers around, but Barker being smart with his racing, and Nathan Anstis does just get through there into the chicane. What a brilliant combination of corners there all the way through the lap. And well, as they come towards the end of it, Jack Barker loses 2 places, but he definitely delivers some brilliant battling with Sight Anstey and Nathan Anstis, and well, he'll be looking to try and come back sooner rather than later if he can. Meanwhile, behind Weston right now, your Evo leaders looking at this and thinking, okay, if they're going to fight like this, I've got to get past them because they're costing me some time. And we do know, based on what we saw, of course, last week in Mexico, that Thomas Weston right now is no stranger to fighting with drivers of other classes. And indeed, he put on plenty of battles up and down the field over the entirety of the 60 minutes. Some of them were absolutely brilliant. Some others, meanwhile, well, there were some question marks around blue flags. How that's for the stewards to investigate after the racing and ask for to commentate on at the time. But we're not going to commentate on that any further. We're going to stay with the positives of the present. And Weston right now delivering an absolutely brilliant race here and really turning up positive with regards to how he's performing here in Spain thus far. But coming a bit further down the order, Christian Furs makes his way down the start-finish straight. He's side by side with Jordan Jones, looking to put the place over Jones there as he now makes his way into overall 30th place. And Jones is going to fall back one. However, he won't be too upset because the next car up the road is going to be Daniel Hayes, a Premier driver, and then at long last it will be fellow Evo driver Simon Hartley. So he'll be hoping he can follow both Furs and Hayes and use them to put him a bit closer to what is Simon Hartley, his teammate, and then Joseph Preston, who's a little bit further up the road by comparison, the best part of 10 seconds. Such is the way the gaps have opened up in the Evo class because of what happened on the opening couple of laps. Now, sadly, we have had a few retirements in this race as a result of the major incidents, which have included Alex Brown, also James Connolly, Wayne Douglas and Daniel Shilcock. So for 43 starters, we are down to 39 runners at the moment, as that's side by side there. That's going to be Furs battling with Simon Hartley. Hartley getting a bit wrong at turn number 5, and Furs goes up the inside immediately there and clears another driver. So Hartley will be forced back towards his teammate. And well, the Dartwind racing with SimCoach Setup's driver right now. We think to himself, why did I need to make that mistake? But make no mistake, meanwhile, we can see Luis Pereira here getting close to the back of Joel Loudon as they come out of turns 10, 11 and in towards 12. And well, up the hill they go. The 1-2-1 driver been involved in an incident with himself and Preston. That was one of the other cars that got caught up there, although it wasn't the car at the time. It wasn't the Aston Martin that got caught in the pinch of that big battle. Didn't quite discern who that was, but what we can tell you is that right now Luis Pereira definitely involved. In fact, I think it may have been Joe Sparrow. And here he is, in fact, there is Sparrow, the Aston Martin we're referring to, right now running in 4th place in the Premier class. Well, any damage he's picked up, he's showing no signs of being abated by it, and he is trying to chase down Richard Jones. And Jones, the 3rd place driver in Premier, in terms of the relative gap between the two of them, currently stands at 10.5 seconds. But coming back towards the Barker, Anstis and Ansley train, well, they have been fighting, and we can see Thomas Weston's get involved, but also Darren Sharples at Old Duty Cars is with them now. So Anthony's been given a bit of a breather, but Barker and Anstis have swapped places once again. That's happened off camera, so Barker found his way back in the battle of Lamborghini versus McLaren, and those two are absolutely going to hammer and tongs at each other here. I think we could be on for what will be a race-long battle between them as Weston backs off and lets Sharples go. So I think Weston's recognised it here. With his Evo lead, he doesn't really need to fight. If anything, he might as well just tuck it behind, yield the places overall, and save the fuel and save the tyres, and therefore he will give himself much more strategic variety later in the race, where he can underfuel the car, or just not fuel as much, we should say, and still feel confident to make it to the end of the race. And also, he could perhaps save actually changing the tyres, and with the gap that he does have at Joel Loudon and the rest of the Evo field, I think right now he can come into the pitch, change all 4 tyres and come back out and still have an advantage of at least 5 or 6 seconds, such as what he's grafted himself. Speaking of the graft, there's Ricardo Luis Pereira up the inside of Joel Loudon in towards turn number 10. And now here comes Joseph Preston, who's all over the back of him as they head up the rise. He's going to look up the inside here. Very quick move. Oh, no, it's not. Loudon says, no, you don't. Preston says, damn it. And as they come down the hill right now, the Porsche 902 driver, he's looking close, but he's not getting anywhere else. And as they come out of turns 14 and 15, the number 94 here right now, where it's got all the corner speed, but the only downside of this Porsche is that it doesn't have the straight line speed unless he takes the rear wing off the car. But the downside of that, of course, is you then lose that rear stability, which of course is so well known for being rear engine rear wheel drive, and it's what gives it so much potency in the corners. Onto the brakes they come here, and Preston right now close, but he can't find a way under braking. It wants to be a little bit closer than that. He's going to have to do it midway through the lap, and the run through turn 5 in towards turn 13. That is where the Porsche is the strongest of the cars out here today. It's all in the corners, not in the straights, and we can see that number 94 close. Think about it, he does, but in the end I think he hesitates. He decides to cut back in, taps his rival on the rear and says, hello, I'm here. And Loudon's probably saying, yes, thank you for that, I didn't need to be tapped. And Preston immediately backs off there, making sure not to gain an unfair advantage by rear-ending his rival. As they come out to turn number 5, they stay as they were, and Preston falls back a little bit here and will try to get back into the fight as soon as he possibly can. But brilliant fight between them, and right now these two Evo drivers definitely delivered on a rather promising season in their fight for second in class. But as they fight, we have had a bit of drama. So Anthony, here he is, he's just fallen away from what was at the time 4th place in the Premier class. But how exactly did he fall away? Well, he fell off circuit from what I gather, and here's the replay to explain. As he makes his way into the pit lane, well, this may have been encouraged by his incident. So it's turn number 10, gets the power down on the sausage curb, comes off of it, no sign of a problem. Into turn number 11, rear of the car, let's go there as he came off of the apex curb and just straight into the barrier there, flat on, full-on impact, and well, the number 227 driver will be absolutely bruised by that one, and it's no surprise he's making his way into the pits immediately, because I can imagine the damage he's picked up there, that is going to make the car feel rather miserable indeed. But with that, let's head back to iRacing. And well, as he makes his way on down pit road, he will now be thinking, so okay, what can I do at this point? As we do see Samuel Clark, your leader of Premier, continuing to try and pull away. Richard Jones, meanwhile, he's still battling with Hendrik Zilke there, but intriguingly, the gap from Clark to Jones and Zilke has not expanded despite the fighting. Well, either Clark is struggling to break away, or he hasn't got the pace to break away, or alternatively he is fuel saving and respect to the fact that whilst these two behind are fighting, he may as well not push himself too hard, because the risk is he'll only end up coming behind Tom Weston, and he will then get bottled in behind the Evo class leader, who may or may not let him go. Alternatively, Clark will have to try and force a move on him, and given we are getting close to the pit stops here, Clark right now I think is way to keep his options open, and that's why he's keeping a close eye on Jones and Zilke. Jones has secured that second place in Premier at this time, but I think he'll be wondering, do I come into the pits, do I not? But the circuit map at the top right corner of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, definitely gives a bit of a picture that coming into the pits might be a bit too risky here, because you may end up in traffic. Nathan Anstis has just gone in as I look out my content booth window. There's a cone in the middle of the circuit. I don't know how it got there, but coming back to the point we're going to make, Anstis has decided to come in after battling with Barker for several laps, so he's going to go for the undercut. Barker will have to respond, and we also do have Christian Maltrekin from the Pro class, and both of them right now being serviced, and we'll see what that means in terms of their races later on. Noah Blackwell, he comes into the bits as well, does the Access Sport driver, releasing Mark Collicott, who's on a recovery drive here, as he powers his way down the start-finish straight for now the 16th time of asking under race conditions. And well, it's a bit of a lonely race, Mark Collicott, given everything and how it's played out, and had already made a pit stop for a fast repair. You can understand if at this point he is just turning the laps in order to see if he can salvage some points ahead of the next round, which of course we'll see our drivers make the way to none other than what will be the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course circuit. Frustrating one, no doubt about it, for Collicott, but still, championships are made over multiple rounds, and when it goes wrong, you've got to grab the points, so that way when it all goes right, victory tastes all the more sweeter. But back to our drivers here in the long pack. Casper Brockner there close behind Krista Halsoy. It does seem as though we've got a bit of difficulty there with Brockner's livery today. It's not quite made its way onto the car. And well, Helder Gonzalez giving chase just behind as they all make the way around. But as they do, Gonzalez here, well, he'll be looking at this and thinking, how can I get through? Because I want that fourth place elite as a minimum. And then we have the two pro drivers in front who are proving to be not quite on the pace right now. They were fast early on, but it seems as though they're barreling out of steam a little bit. And Gonzalez, well, he will be chased after teammate Krista Halsoy, the third place pro in amongst all this. There you can see him in the Aston Martin Advantage Evo as they head down towards turn number one. Now you can imagine the team will be on the radio, the drivers will be talking to each other, and they'll be asking, what's the plan here? Who's going to pit first? And where is the best time to pit? Because you can imagine that Gonzalez right now, he may want to pit before Halsoy pits in order to be able to leapfrog this, but he'll need some clear track. And well, if he hasn't got the clear track, it's not going to work whatsoever. Coming back to the battle for the Premier lead, that's a similar pitch here, because Clark, well, he has let the gap to what is Darren Sharple's hold up 4.5 seconds. Thomas Weston has come into the pits. So Clark, I think, will be thinking now, okay, I can push a bit harder because I don't have a car immediately in front of me and I'm not going to worry about tripping up on it. But Jones and Zilke are both matching, if not surpassing, Clark's pace, because on that previous lap, Samuel Clark a 46.3, Jones a 46.0, Zilke a 45.83. So it does seem as though the old dudes in cars driver is the fastest of the trio here when he's not running right behind another car, but he's got to find a way past. That's the problem that is going to confront him. Speaking of confronting problems, Thomas Weston's left the pit lane, and what you'll notice here, he's found a bit of traffic in front of him, the former Christian Furs, but Simon Hartley, who has already made 2 stops, well, Hartley right now, the Evo at second place driver, he's going to try and get involved in this as well. So there's a lot of dust being kicked up there. Has somebody got it wrong? Yes, someone has. Thomas Weston's run wide. Weston wide at turn number 3, and as he brings it back together, it's a nightmare fall for grace here for the man who's leading the Evo class for the opening half of this race. As we get to the halfway point, well, that is a dramatic turn of events, and right now Weston's missing the rear wing as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if this car is going to be coming into the pits at the end of this lap in order to get the wing repaired, and therefore give all the aerodynamic stability on that rear end that McLaren so desperately needs, as he tucks it behind Ivan Sander, and Sander here holding his ground over in 24th place. to do so here, not let Western get back past him, because he wants to try and make some more places. But the big question, of course, everyone's going to be asking is, how on earth did Western have it all go wrong? And well, thankfully, we do have an answer for you, ladies and gentlemen. And well, here we go, as we see him get even further on coming out of turn line. And right now, Western shaking the car. You can imagine that's the equivalent of him shaking his head and trying to calm himself down inside the cockpit. It is not a happy lap for Thomas Western. It's lap number 17. And well, here's the explanation as to how it all went wrong for him so quickly. So as we take a look back, replay courtesy of Arturo Mayorga, as he made his way through turn number 3. Car just snapped on him there. Well, he's been so smooth the last few laps, and just suddenly a car snaps, rolls backwards onto the gravel, and at that point you really are a passenger in the car, and it just goes to the barrier. That's how he lost the rear wing. And for Western, the car just refusing to point towards the corner. But can we get on board there to see what happened? Yes, we can. Look at the steering wheel inputs. Went through the corner, and well, in fact, interesting there. Sounded as though he lifted off the throttle. Now, I wonder whether he felt the car twitch underneath him, lifted off the throttle to try and compensate, and that caused the rear of the car to come loose as he made his way up the hill in towards the apex of the corner, because that is a very odd moment there at turn number 3 for Western. You don't normally see the rear come loose, particularly as he comes off the throttle, unless the turbo was derating. And, well, the number 98 driver there, having it all go backwards, and indeed not the way he wanted it to go at all. Let's head back to your live racing. And as we come back, well, he's carrying on as best he can here as Western, even in a damaged car, and without a rear wing as well. So not a car that's going to be repaired anytime soon. Perhaps the team haven't got the parts available. But I see Richard Simnor saying a bit of an overcorrection from his thought process there. I'd be inclined to agree with you. Overcorrection and the car just kicking loose. And well, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, the thing about these cars is you've got the engine behind you as a driver, which is perfect for cornering because it gives you the additional rotation. There's only one downside, which is it's a pendulum effect. When the rear of the car swings loose, all the mass goes loose with it, and suddenly you've got to try and very quickly correct it. But if you correct it too much or too little, it's going to end up in a bad state. Front engine rear wheel drive is a bit different, of course, because you've got a very light rear end and you have to try and get the front to power through when you have the rear end come loose. That is one of the downsides of mid-engine rear-wheel drive, is that the car, when it comes loose on the rear, it can very quickly go from what is a slide to something far more exaggerated. As there, Casper Brotner tries to do his best impression of being Tony Hawk, making his way over the sausage curb of turn number 8. Then I saw sparks fly from the under tray of the car, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's done some damage to the under tray because of the fact that sausage curb is very high. And well, you can imagine the ride heights of these GT3 machines are not greater typically than 60 to 75 millimeters, which sounds like a lot, but keep in mind those sausage curbs, they can be sometimes up to the best part of what is 80 to 90 millimeters high. And well, that definitely flying the car around. In fact, they can be much higher than that, to be fair. And well, we're not going to get the tape measure out, but we did see the sparks flying under Brotner's car. And well, holding on to third and lead at the moment with Helder Gonzalez right behind. Gonzalez is already putting the pressure on, and Brotner takes away the pressure because he makes his way into the pit lane here. And this is going to be a crucial pit stop. And for Helder Gonzalez, this is going to be a crucial follow-up lap, because now he needs to absolutely hammer this lap in. It needs to be a qualifying lap. He's planning to come into the pit soon. If he doesn't get this right, then he will find out very quickly that he's going to come out behind his rival again, and Casper Brotner will feel as though he's in control of that fight for effectively what is, we believe, fourth place in the lead, with Andy Jones having pitted, and he will re-inherit that third place by the time all the pit stops are done. The DCW racing driver, to be fair, on an offset strategy compared to teammate Richard Simnor, and it's definitely being highlighted as his teammate Mark Collicott has made his way all the way up to 12th, but keep in mind that Collicott will have another pit stop to make because he had to take that fast repair pit stop right towards the start. Out of the pit lane, there goes none other than Darren Giacovelli, the 8th place Evo driver at this time. He gradually makes his way around, and he looks to be quite happy at the moment as he makes his way in towards turn number 3, respects the blue flags there, and well, the number 30 driver just stays out wide. Doesn't go too wide to end up into the runoff area, almost does take some gravel with him, but just about keeps it on the black stuff as he rolls his way in towards turn number 4. As he comes on through, we look to St. Anthony. He's got Christian Maltrek for close company. Maltrek taking a look up the inside, thinks about it, then thinks not to do it. And right now, the UKSimRacing driver here under some pressure that I don't think he really wanted after taking his, what I believe has been his 190 pit stop, because Maltrek is right there with him now as they roar the way up towards the next braking zone. Well, I think Anthony, after that mistake, he was hoping he'd be able to start closing up some time to the likes of Barker and also Anstis, but it seems to be going the other way at this time. But a change of overall leader. Joe Nathan, who has been running second to Richard Simnor for pretty much the entirety of this race, by the best part of what has been about 4 to 5 seconds, he now leads for a brief moment as the Rage Against the Game esports driver with that brilliant livery, particularly the tiger on the side of the car. And, well, Richard Simnor will be looking at this and thinking, okay, he's going long. I just need to make sure I get a good outlap in order to offset whatever Nathan can do as he's yet to come into the pits. The third place runner, now promoted to second, is your pro leader of Mikey Story, and Story right now is looking to be on course to take the championship lead after this round. Should things finish as they currently stand. Goodness me, there the alliteration not working out in my mouth. But as he comes in towards his next series of corners, he's still got Krista Halsoy keeping him honest, and Halsoy here definitely has been putting one of his strongest performances of the season so far. He has been looking good in the first 2 rounds, but this one today we are definitely seeing Krista inching forward, and we're starting to head towards peak performance from the Tractics Racing driver. But out of turn at number 5 and towards 7, it goes a little bit quiet between the trio here for now. Behind that's Helder Gonzalez, his teammate of elite class. And then we do look further down the order, and this is an onboard with Joe Sparrow, as we do see Graf make his way to the pit lane. So what was meant to be a battle ends up not being a battle as Austin Graf peels off into the pits. And right now the JST Motorsports driver just heads down the start finish straight here and continuing to make his way onwards. As he does so, well, understandably here, the 193 driver, he'll be wary of the fact his next target is Richard Jones, who is the best part of 14 seconds away. He's not going to be easy to catch up to at this point in the day, but there's still time in this race, 23 minutes plus the final lap. So Sparrow right now will be hoping that there is going to be a twist in the tail, and it'll be a positive one for him, and it could be to the detriment of his rivals as this race heads towards its natural conclusion. But all the pit stops are happening at this point in time, so therefore we are really waiting to see where everyone's going to emerge. As Helder Gonzalez goes on to another lap. He's yet to pit. Joe Nathan is coming in, so has Mikey Story and Krista Halsoy. Jack Barker's also in. So with all those drivers in, Helder Gonzalez has gone on to a 22nd lap with that starting fuel tank. That's impressive fuel saving. He's going to do the best part of 39 minutes before he pits. And Gonzalez here, by going this long and fuel saving, he has brought himself clear air. And right now he can have an in lap where he'll be able to put in those strong laps as long as he's got the fuel to do so. As long as the car does not start coughing up fumes right towards the end of this lap. Otherwise it could be a bit of a crawl to the pits. But hold up a second. That's a change of overall lead when Gonzalez comes in, because Joe Nathan has let header Richard Simnor. Now Simnor, to be fair, had to spend an extra 2 seconds at the pits. That's because of the rather thirsty fuel tank of the Ford Mustang. But right now Nathan has got the jump here, and Simnor close, but can he get right back ahead immediately? The answer is no. He gets close. And we can imagine this is going to be Ford versus Ferrari, Spanish edition, as they head out of turn number 4 and in towards 5. But Nathan at this time, well, he'll be looking behind him and realising that Simnor does have warmer tyres at this point. He's got the tyres back into the zone, and if they have changed 8 tyres, typically they may change 2 tyres, it would be the 2 tyres on one side of the car, which sees the most wear, which here we are at a circuit which is technically clockwise, but the wear distribution is actually about 60-40 in favour of the left-hand side tyres. They take slightly more wear, but this is one of those circuits where you do have a lot of left-handers as well, which put excessive wear into the right-hand side tyres. So changing tyres here may not be the optimal strategy, because you actually will upset the balance of the car in terms of the grip levels from side to side, a bit more significantly than other circuits around the globe that we're visiting this season. But Nathan and Simnor, regardless of whether they change tyres or not, they are absolutely close together. And now Joe Nathan's got to try and hold on here. He's got to try and channel his inner Max Verstappen. If anybody remembers Max Verstappen's first ever Formula 1 victory, where he did battle with Kimi Raikkonen at this circuit for lap after lap, and Raikkonen could not find a way through. Right now, Joe Nathan is trying to do the exact same here to take his maiden win and stop being Mr. Third Place in the elite class. Onto that start finish straight they go. The Ferrari gets the better traction out the final corner. That is something he'll take of note, and Simnor will do the same. We're thinking, right, how can I do a better exit there to stay nice and close down the start finish straight, which is where I've got the stronger car. Well, as they continue to try and work it out, meanwhile Christian Furs is continuing to head on through. And after what was a stop for repairs right at the start of the race, he will need to be into the pits at some point, as Nathan Anstis has got a front bumper that's practically hanging loose on the 296 McLaren just in front. So he's been involved in some sort of altercation. In fact, that's coming off the car, and there it goes. And, well, as it rolls to a standstill there, thankfully, it doesn't cause any damage to the cars behind. And Christian Furs immediately will go up the inside here, and he'll take another place. And Samuel Clark, the Premier Leaders, look at this and thinking, OK, how on earth do I get involved in this, and how quickly can I get past it all? Because it does seem as though Nathan Anstis' car is missing pieces, and not in a good way. coming through turn number 3. We can see how close there Samuel Clark is getting absolutely all over the back of the man in front right now. And well, I think it's going to be a question of when, not if he'll go for the move. And in fact, he goes for it here straight away to turn number 4. Well, the Premier Leader does not want to waste any time because Hendrik Zilke is only 1.3 seconds behind. Zilke has leapt over Richard Jones as a result of the pit stops with a 4-second swing between the two drivers. And Zilke having a much shorter pit stop due to fuel saving, we reckon, in that Mercedes. And that's where he's been able to get the job done. And many liken the Mercedes to the Ford Mustang, except what they say, what it makes up for compared to the Ford Mustang is it's much better on its fuel load, albeit at the sacrifice of a little bit of acceleration out to the low speed corners, because of course second and third gear in this Mercedes are very tenacious gears. It is very aggressive on wheel spin on the rear wheels on its 6.3 litre engine. Down towards the braking zone here, we can see Clark still battling with Anstis. They are still fighting too for now. Anstis, understandably, does not want the Premier Leader to get past him away from him because he wants to chase after Christian Furs and Jack Barker. But right now, I think he's going to have to deal with it because Clark has got ahead through turns 12 and 13. And well, at this point now, Nathan Anstis surely will not have an opportunity to come back at him unless he goes to the mother of all lunges into the chicane. But that's never going to work from there. And Samuel Clark immediately now tries to abscond with what is overall none other than 10th place there. And as they make the way to the next lap, Christian Furs makes his way into the pit lane. We expect he had to come on into the pits, but he did a good job to make his way all the way out to the bottom end of the top 10, only now to be reset back down the order. What else is happening elsewhere? Well, currently it is Jordan Jones who now leads in the Evo class, 19th overall. And as soon as I say that, we reveals the fact that he needs to come into the pits for a pit stop. So that may give the lead of the class to his teammate, Simon Hartley. Hartley just coming out to turn number 12 right now. It could be close between the two of them, depending on how long Jones plans to stay static in the pit lane for. And well, if it is close, that is going to be a surprise. But it might be a 1-2 for the team, and it could be a very special moment for the team. Indeed, it'll be their first 1-2 of the season. But we'll have to wait with bated breath and see, because Jones makes his way to a standstill. He's been there for some time, so he is being serviced. So Simon Hartley will take the class lead, and Joel Loudon will move up into second place of Evo here, with Thomas Weston close behind. Weston had to make a pit stop once. He's made a second pit stop for repair work, so Weston right now into third. So Jordan Jones, in fact, now relegated back to fourth place in Evo, but still they're all relatively close, these drivers, and therefore we have got an interesting Evo class battle towards the end of this race, because it is 4 seconds covering the top 3, and if they fight hard, well, the likes of Joseph Preston and Jordan Jones, they could all get into the mix before this is all said and done. Back towards the front of the field, meanwhile, we still see Joe Nathan. He leads another lap. He is not giving in here to the pressure put on him by the Ford Mustang of Richard Simnor. And if I was Richard Simnor at this point, I would not be trying to push too hard here, because the problem will be that he'll know with how heavy the Ford Mustang is, particularly under braking loads into the likes of the hairpin at turn number 10 and also here to turn number 4, it is a car which could very quickly overheat its front brakes and also its front tyres. I think for Simnor, this is going to be a bit of tyre management he'll need to do, whereas Joe Nathan's Ferrari doesn't have as much of that problem on the front end, and he'll have to wait and see whether he can gradually get Nathan to overdo it and as a result make a mistake of his own. Otherwise, we could be seeing this stay relatively static here, because one of the pain points of the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, when you are the chaser, not the one being chased, is that running in dirty air has a habit of very quickly overheating the front end of the car, and also it invokes some rather nasty understeer that can invoke track limits. And well, track limits here are rather tight and strict, and if you pick up enough off tracks, we do end up with a pesky drive-through penalty, and that can send you all the way down. Andy Jones, meanwhile, he's your third place runner, so DCW Racing, of course, for a double podium in the lead, albeit as he knocks a cone there. Whatever did he do to that cone, I don't know, but as he roars his way down, we can see Helder Gonzalez is only a second behind, so the top 4 in the lead have actually leapt their way past the 2 leading pros. Speaking of the leading pros here, we see Mikey Story and Krista Housewaite. They are still together, and Housewaite is right behind. He was closing earlier on, and well, since the pit stops, he's closed up even more so as they head out to turn number 12. Off camera, we have just had a change for none other than second place in Evo class. Thomas Weston has got ahead of Joel Loudon. We'll try to have what will be a replay of that in due course. And well, as the drivers make the way through, Krista Housewaite right now, I think if he was any close at this point, he'd be touching the rear wing of his rival. But look at the exit there for the BMW M4 Story coming out the final corner. Housewaite, to be fair, having to lift off the throttle because the understeer coming downhill through turn number 16. It is slightly downhill, that corner. It's not obvious, plus also you don't want to take the apex curve there, because the apex curve is actually quite high and it upsets the balance of the car. under braking. Halsway gets a much better run into turns 1 and 2. In fact, Story just going a little bit too deep and now into 3. These two pushing each other, but again, Halsway, much like Simnor, chasing down race leader Joe Nathan. Dirty air, it's just costing him the confidence of getting the nose of the car to turn into those apexes, and that is forcing him right into a difficult position. But we will see what Halsway can do here as he gets a really nice exit out of turn number 4. That is using all the track and oh my good lord, that is a big snap to the inside. Krista Halsway there, I think he went for his little breaking point. I think Mikey's Story broke a little bit too early. Halsway trying to make the most of it and just dodged. My good lord, if they'd been any closer at that point, as we do see here, what is Daryl Giacovelli taking a look up the inside and suddenly realising, no, I don't want to get involved in this at all. My goodness, that is some brilliant reactions from Krista Halsway and Mikey Story, to be fair. When he saw Halsway have to dive down the inside of him, if he turned in, both of them I think would be in the gravel plane sandcastles. But great work from both drivers there to turn that into what was almost a lunge of the day from Krista Halsway. And well, my good lord, give that man a medal. Meanwhile, Joe Nathan and Richard Simnor, they are now 1.1 seconds apart, being a bit more precise. And it does seem as though Simnor right now perhaps just backing off a little bit here and waiting to see what the final few minutes of this race can bring to him. But we did promise you a replay of how this man made his way past this man behind him, Joel Loudon. And well, how did Thomas Weston exactly move into second in the Evo class? It's time to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a look back in time. And well, without further ado, as that replay does come up here, and at long last, it does arrive on the scene. Here we go. And this was a drag race down the start-finish straight between the two drivers, and it was West on the inside versus Loudon on the outside. Classic move into turn number 1. Now, did Loudon get the switch back here? No, he didn't, and he didn't make it too wide all the way towards turn number 2. And Thomas West there, straight for a pass, and then Carl Tivoli right in front of the pair of them there. So in the end, got boxed in a little bit behind the encroaching lap down Evo driver, but Tivoli parking it on the inside of the road. They're coming in towards turn number 4, respecting the blue flags and releasing them to go racing. Brilliant stuff. Let's head back to live racing, ladies and gentlemen. So as we come on back, still a bit more of the distance to go here between all the drivers. And indeed, right now, anything can happen until the finish line, and it normally does in the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, brought to you by SimRacing International. Luke Sherlock being a driver under a bit of pressure from Noah Blackwell. As they head on to another lap for them, they're turning on to their 27th tour of the circuit, as our overall leaders are getting ready to a 28th tour. But Sherlock right now with Noah Blackwell for close company. Two different classes of drivers. We do have a Premier driver ahead of a Pro, and Blackwell right now just trying to make an overall place. Through that long sweeping right-hander. No difference between them here. And well, I can see Krista Halsway, who we say hello to at the YouTube chat, saying, I can confirm my heart probably skipped at least 30 beats there. Caught him completely off guard, and there was a small contact, and that's why he gave the position back. So we didn't see that contact because of the on-board, but that explains why he did back off quite sizably there after the fact of the matter. Now, Blackwell, meanwhile, he's right now trying to pick his way through. And, well, Sherlock's enjoying a good little ding-dong scrap here. They may be in two different classes, but the SRI 7 Privateer Ryan driver, he's close, but can he get completely involved? And the answer seems to be, at the moment, no. Although it is running Axis Sinsport livery for some reason, this car. And indeed, I don't know whether our livery engine today has decided to go completely sideways, but we're going to roll with it as he comes out turn line and up towards 10. Right now, Luke Sherlock just in front, doing everything to hold on to what is 21st place. And well, I think he just wants to enjoy the fight as Blackwell gets close again, but too close at the wrong time, and therefore can't make any progress. So I think he just regresses. He takes way too much apex curve there at turn of 11. It almost sends that McLaren off to the barrier, like we saw for St. Anthony earlier in this race. Indeed, those high curves, they can catch you out. But these drivers then, they make their way towards the end of this lap, and as they do, we come to Simon Hartley, your Evo leader, who gets himself onto the back of this. And the problem for Hartley right now is that he has the rising threat of Thomas Weston behind. Now, Simon Hartley at the end of this lap, what's it going to be? His lap time does come through, and it is going to be a 46.69. Thomas Weston, a 46.04. Weston is flying out there at the moment. You can see how close he is in the rear of the picture. 2.2 seconds of the gap at the start of this lap. I can imagine by the end of it, it will be cut by another half a second at this rate of knots. And it is seemingly Thomas Weston's race really now to try and win, whereas Simon Hartley's got to try and hold on for a bit longer. 10.5 minutes to go, and well, that clock is accurate, ladies and gents. We've got it fixed for this round, and therefore it does mean we will know exactly when we're going on to that final lap. And well, right now, if we do the quick mathematics, we should be seeing approximately 35 laps here today. We'll bit, we could be out by 1 or 2. Speaking of being out here, we've come away from towards the back of the field, towards the middle of the field, and just the bottom end of the top 10. And this is the wooded car Nathan Anstis, who right now running in 4th place of the Pro Class. With the damage he's picked up, he has built a queue behind him, with Hendrik Zilke being the Premier driver, who really is the odd one out, because behind him are Sight Anstey and Christian Maltrek, 2 pro drivers as well. So Anstis right now will be trying to hope that the Mercedes of Hendrik Zilke acts as a bit of a rear guard as they come down towards the next braking zone, albeit I think Zilke's got other ideas here. He wants to make a pass, he's going to look up the inside, battle with the brakes, like Anthony tries to make it 3 wide and decides in the end not to. I think that was a door that was always going to shut, and well, Sight Anthony would have very quickly been squeezed there, and I think his McLaren would have suddenly been compacted to half the size on the front of its nose. But you can see how much Anthony wants to get on through here, and in fact he's going to look up the inside towards turn number 4, where Anstis and Zilke fighting. Zilke's got through, Sight Anthony goes up the inside, Christian Maltrek now tries to also put himself in there and says to Sight Anthony, no, go on, get the power down, I'm coming through with you. Anthony has a little bit of a wobble coming out of turn number 4. Anstis is still side by side. Darren Sharples is getting in there, so this is now becoming a 4-way fight for 4th place in the Pro Class here, as Jack Barker is the best part of 10 seconds up the road, and I think we'll be smiling at the fact that he's moved into 3rd. He's going to gradually pull away with it in his Lamborghini Huracan, and the car that's definitely bitten him twice so far this season isn't going to bite him a 3rd time. He's biting back, and he's now dominating that relationship with the car, and well, he'll be trying to hold on to that final podium spot. But right now, the question of who's going to be the best of the rest of the pros, it seems like Anthony's taken that position with Christian Maltrek, and this has been shuffled down to 6th, and Darren Sharples is right on the back of this group right now with Vince Van Sander. Well, he's only 7 seconds away, but he is gaining quickly. Here's the BMW driver for Pegasus Motorsport, and he'll be hoping, if they continue to fight, that gap is going to come down quite dramatically before this race is all done. However, he will be at the mercy of everybody in front of him. It will require them to fight, and all he can do in the meantime is maintain his pace. Now, meanwhile, Daniel Pace and Luke Sherlock are fighting there side by side, and this is not good timing for Simon Hartley. He comes up behind 2 drivers in Premier are fighting hard for 6th place in their class, and now he's got to pick his way through as the Evo leader as he squeezes around inside. Contact! That's contact with Sherlock. Sherlock goes spinning out at turn number 10. Oh no! Weston and Hartley together out to turn number 9. I correct myself, and Weston and Hartley make contact. Thomas Weston carries on. Simon Hartley's McLaren is in pieces as it comes back on. Joe Loudon goes up the inside, and well, suddenly, if Weston's got enough damage, in fact, he parks up. Weston's out of the race. Weston's car's got to be towed to the pits. Simon Hartley's car would be surprised if that's got to go to the pits. And for Joel Loudon, this is a dream come true as he leads now into the Evo class. You couldn't make this up. With only 8 minutes to go, turn number 9 causes absolute bedlam. And well, as they come through, Loudon right now, all he's got to do at this point, surely, is put enough of a gap between himself and Simon Hartley. If he stays out, Hartley does. I think he's going to fight onto the bitter end here with no rear wing. This has got to be in the hands of the Aston Martin driver now, if he can make it count. Joseph Preston as well is not too far back as well. Preston could be on for 2nd place here. He's up into 3rd, and right now I think he'll feel as though the wind is blowing very much in his direction. But as I head down, we say hello to Andre Montaigne as well, who's tuning in, and well, we are going to get a replay of what happened there very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed it was a double whammy at turn number 9 for all the wrong reasons, and suddenly the battle for 6th in Premier and the lead of Evo has taken a dramatic twist. Let's go and take a replay of it. So here we go then, and it all began with this for Luke Sherlock. This was on lap number 29. Side by side he battled. Now Simon Hartley does get his nose in there as they come out the corner. You can see just a small tap to the rear, and that was Luke Sherlock sent spinning to the barrier. But what happened to Simon Hartley is the question we need an answer to. So we ride on board here with Thomas Weston. This might give us an idea. So Hartley got caught up, lost speed. Weston out on the outside, comes across very gradually and just gets collected from his perspective on the rear right quarter panel. From Simon Hartley's perspective, what did that look like? Here we go with Simon Hartley's on board. This was on the nose camera. The DWR Supercoach setup driver, so caught up there, loses speed. Now tries to get it together. Car points to the left slightly, it would seem, based on that picture, although this camera is angled at a slight tilt to the left, so therefore it may not be accurate, and that's how him and Weston came together. They converged midway down the straight as Weston tried to capitalise on the situation, and then suddenly Simon Hartley sees Joel Loudon right up his inside. So it went fantastic to frantic real fast, says Krista Halsoy. And I would 100% agree. In fact, can we get that man in the commentary booth, because he is making some absolutely brilliant analysis there. And indeed, it's so great to have so many of you giving your thoughts there in the YouTube chat. But without further ado, we head back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we're not too far away from the checkered flag, but is there more drama to come? Let's see. So as we come back, this is the onboard with Joseph Preston as he roars his way on through. And as he does so, well, 5 minutes left here. And, well, it does seem as though, at the moment at least, for him, his target in front is none other than Simon Hartley. 4 seconds into the gap, he can see him. He can smell the blood in the water if he was a shark. But he's got some work to do if he wants to make this happen, as we show you the class standings there. And right now, I think for Preston, even if he comes home in 3rd place at Evo, he will be very proud of this accomplishment. But a part of me wonders whether he just wants a tiny bit more out of this race. And understandably, it's the racer's mentality. Why settle for 3rd when you can chase down 2nd? Why finish 2nd when you could take victory? But will he be able to get any closer, or is he at his limit here in that Porsche 992? Well, 5 minutes will tell us that answer. Looking back to Mikey Story and Chris Halsey, or should we say looking forward, because they're all the way towards the front of the field. The fight for 5th overall is also your pro lead battle. And Story and Halsey have been like this for the best part now of 15 minutes. There's no delta between the two of them, and it really is coming down to both drivers here equally talented behind the wheel, and both demonstrating the strengths and weaknesses of their respective machines and the setups on the car. And well, Story right now definitely under a bit of pressure, as my goodness, how's he really taking the apex curb there at turn number 7? That's something that he's got the car set up for here, is to ride those curbs quite high, and that might be helping him through these bends. It may explain why he's just able to get a bit more rotation, whereas that BMW, you can see as they get to the straights, the BMW just opens up that gap a tiny bit. It's not even half a tenth along the short straights, but it's enough to stop Halsey from being able to look for the lunges. And to be fair, he did have to convert what was a braking moment into a huge lunge by complete surprise and incident, but the two settled the differences, and it's great respectful racing between them as we jump back aboard with the Tractix racing car. But down he comes through turn at number 13 towards 14 and 15, and the 247 driver so close at the moment as they come through the chicane, but runs a little bit wide off the sausage exit curb. That causes the gap to open up. That might be it here with 3 minutes to go. Look at Story now, we'll have almost a second's worth of gap. And for Halsey, a small mistake like that, it's going to be so hard to close that gap back down again. A couple attempts will feel like a lifetime of a gap between these two. But Halsey just making a minor error there, just the left-hand side tire is going beyond the yellow sausage curb on the exit of the chicane, and when they do, they get wrapped over it and the car gets pulled to the gravel. You essentially bottom out the car on the chicane and it will straight it onto the gravel, and that's by design there to force you not to run wide. And when you can imagine in GT3s, it's like that for Halsey. In open wheelers, it's even more dramatic out there. And these sausage curbs, a bit of a controversial thing with regards to what effects they have on cars. As hold up, that's the car parked up there. That was none other than Thomas Weston, parked at the side of the circuit, and well, he's had to tow to the pits again. So Weston's race is going from good to bad to disastrous in the final 20 minutes. And you've got to feel for him, because he has been on course today for a potential first Evo win of the season. And right now, it's all gone backwards as quickly as that. And well, from him, Joel Alden right now, your Evo leader, has left Simon Hartley to 5 seconds. He is definitely on course for this, but Simon Hartley, meanwhile, there you can see the second place Evo driver. He's got Austin Graf, 7th place Premier right behind him. And then Joseph Preston is almost there. He is 2 seconds away. He is getting closer as he pushes as hard as possible, but the tyres on that Porsche are not in a good state. You can see it sliding around there, and well, it's not having an easy day at the office whatsoever. But heading on down, long left in the race now as we look to Andy Jones and Helder Gonzalez. These two, they are also very close together here as they come out of the final corner. It's those oval standings then for the remainder of the race. And Jones and Gonzalez, well, Jones having to try and break the toe here, but as he weaves and bobs his way down the straight, the only problem that does, it bleeds some speed, and also it makes that straight even longer. And Gonzalez there, well, he backs off a little bit to look to the outside. Jones now has to defend the outside of turn number 2. Gonzalez is there, too wide they roll out the hill. But now Jones will have that inside line, and surely he can get this held onto as he makes his way all the way round. The only thing is that Gonzalez will look for the switchback, but it's not enough this time as they head in towards turn number 4, and Jones throwing everything into this in order to try and hold on as much as possible. But the 311 driver here, I think he's going to need a little bit more. I don't think this is going to be over and done, because Gonzalez right now is tossing everything at this. Jones goes nice and tight on the inside there, down in towards turn at number 5, but you can see Gonzalez looks to the switchback. It doesn't quite work out this time as they head in towards turn number 7. Looking up the inside again now as Gonzalez, but it's too short to run, and he hasn't got the brakes as they head up the hill, and will sparks fly for the right side of that DCW Racing Ferrari, hitting that sausage curve. And right now, you can imagine that there's so much pressure on Andy Jones, and this could be the final lap, because we've only got 20 seconds left on the clock. Joe Nathan is making his way down in towards the chicane. Here goes Gonzalez looking around the outside, but he outbrakes himself into the corner, and Jones holds on to it. We come back to our leader then, ladies and gentlemen, because with only 4 seconds left on the clock, will we get one more lap? We will not. It's the checker flag, and for Joe Nathan, he goes from being Mr. Third Place to Mr. First Place with his first win of the season, elite and overall ahead of Richard Simnor. It will then be Andy Jones versus Helder Gonzalez. Oh no, there's contact! There's contact right at the end. Gonzalez tries to go up the inside in towards the chicane, turns Jones. Well, they're going to be battling side by side back onto the circuit, but Gonzalez, I believe, rightly lets it go. So Jones will take third place in the end, but there might be words between them after the race. Head of Helder Gonzalez. Mikey Story comes on through to take the Pro Victory and extend his championship lead. Head of Krista Halsoy, and Jack Barker was right there at the end of the race as well. He takes his first pro podium of the season. Casper Brotner's in 8th. Then we have Samuel Clark. He makes his way on down in towards turn number 16, and he will bring on home what is the Premier victory. Well done to Samuel Clark. That's 2 wins in 3 races now. His lead will be extended, and then we will have Cy Anthony round off the top 10 ahead of Christian Maltrek. We have Darren Sharples and then Hendrik Zilke, who takes the runner-up spot in the Premier class with a bit more time before we do get to Richard Jones, who comes on home in 3rd place in Premier. A brilliant effort from the slow and steady racing driver as Yavi Sierra finishes 17th just behind, having started all the way down in 43rd place. There's Christian Furs as well. Joel Loudon, meanwhile, he's already finished his race, has Loudon. He's made his way into the pits, and well, we do need to celebrate the Evo winner who's brought home his first win of the season, as Simon Hartley finishes the run-up of the Evo class there a lap down, and Joseph Preston takes his first Evo win as well with a brilliant effort. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, as the last of our drivers come towards the end of their race, we do have Noah Blackwell and Daniel Pays just finishing here. Blackwell takes 10th in the Pro class, and it will be Daniel Pays who takes 6th for the Premier class as they all conclude. But let's be polite, to be fair, and take a look back to what was the checker flag. And in particular, we need to celebrate one driver as, well, Daniel Pays misses brakes there and demonstrating what happens when you get it wrong at turn number 1. Well, we do need to take a look back at what was an absolutely brilliant end to the race for none other than Joel Loudon. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a quick look back at the checker flag for our Evo winner as well. And, well, I think he'll be absolutely ecstatic about it. And it was a winning class for Joel Loudon as well. Here he was, he made his way towards the line. And, well, his first win of the season, I do believe, for Joel. And he'll be absolutely proud of that one. And indeed, yet score a podium. But for his first podium of the season, it's the best one. It is the winning one. And there is your Evo winner. What an effort from him, and Simon Hartley in just behind, and then Joseph Preston, 3rd of the Evo class as well. And there we have seen all of our podium finishers in all 4 of our classes hit their checkered flags. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we do now take a look to the scenic view, and with it we take a look to those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Now, started off with the overall results, of course, as we always do, but we will do a quick run through here because it's the classes which matter, because that's where the points are scored. And as we can see, Joe Nathan for Rage Against the Game Esports, he took overall and with it elite victory, his first win of the season by 1.5 seconds over Richard Simnor, the DCW Racing driver. Well, he started off strong, but in the end for Simnor, it wasn't quite enough for DCW Racing's driver to be able to bring home the win, but the second place, that's going to give him a good haul of points, and it means he'll still very firmly stay towards the front of the field, as Joe Nathan will slightly extend his lead, and he'll be very happy with that. It's a DCW Racing double podium, of course, because Andy Jones in the end held off the attacks of Helder Gonzalez right to the finish, and, well, we can see the Tractix Racing driver was only 2 tenths behind at the line. Then it was Mikey Story who took the pro win in 5th place. A brilliant effort there from Mikey Story, getting the job done for Dexterous Motorsports. And then it was Tractix Racing's driver of none other than Krista Halsoy who brought on home that run-up spot in pro at 6th on the road. Jack Barker was also right with them for Made for Racing, takes his first podium of the season in the Pro class, finally gets some big points to the board, and finally making that Lamborghini work. Ahead of Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, and then Samuel Clark, your Premier winner there, and we makes it 2 wins in 3 races. The Dexterous Motorsports driver is not slowing down at all. 9th place overall is a huge effort. Cy Anthony, round off your top 10. Gutted, I think, to miss out on a potential pro podium today for SimRacing price. With Christian Maltrek, best the rest there for America, MA70 Esports. We're going to focus now on the rest of the class podium finishers in the overall standings. And we look to 13th place there, where you see your run-up in Premier of Hendrik Zilke for Old Dudes in Cars Blue, just behind his pro teammate of Darren Sharples. And then you've got to look a little bit further down, where you've got Nathan Anstis, Ivan Sander, who round off your top 15. And behind the Pegasus SimRacing driver, it was Slow and Steady Racing's Richard Jones, who completed the Premier podium with a 16th place finish. Outside the top 20, that's where you'll find your Evo podium finishers. And what a first win of the season after a 5th and a 4th for Joel Loudon, the SRI 7 Privateer Ryan driver. Well done to him. He may have finished a lap down, but to be fair, what matters most, he took the class win, and he will be absolutely ecstatic about that. We did see as well what was Simon Hartley there for DWR with SimCoach setups. He took the run-up spot there in the Evo class after that huge incident between himself and Thomas Weston coming out of turn number 9 after already being in contact with Luke Sherlock. Indeed, a double whammy there for Simon Hartley, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's had to go to the steward room twice about it. I'm not pointing the finger at him, to be fair, but I think the steward's room's going to be busy, and Simon Hartley may have a few tickets there, which he'll be subbed for. Then we did see Joe Preston, or Joseph Preston as he's known in full, taking his first podium of the season in the Evo class for JSD Motorsports, and a brilliant effort there from him. And I think he'll feel as though if he had one more lap, he could have been the runner-up. But as far as first podiums go, the number 94 Porsche driver definitely earned it the hard way. We'll look a bit further down the overall finishing order, and what we did see was that there were finishes from all drivers down to and including 35th place finisher of Daryl Giacovelli, the privateer there, who took 35th 5 laps down. And unfortunately, we did see non-finishes for Mark Collicott, Nathan Scott, Stephen Donnelly, Giles Philipp, Alex Brown, and also for James Connolly, Daniel Shilcock, and Wayne Douglas, with several of these drivers being involved in the open lap instance, and in the end their races coming to misery before they could finally get up to magnificence. But then coming to your individual class finishing positions, this is where all the points are scored, of course. In Elite, we may have only had 7 Elite drivers, but goodness me, we had an absolutely brilliant battle at the front of Elite, and Joe Nathan Ian got it done on the pit stops for Rage Against the Game Esports, and took the win ahead of Richard Simnor for DCW Racing, who threw everything he could at it in the second stint, but being the chaser rather than the chase did not work out in his favour. So double podium for the team with Andy Jones a further 21 seconds back, and then we did see Helder Gonzalez there just behind him for Tractics Racing, fighting hard but couldn't quite get through, particularly after their late instant into the chicane. But both drivers there, I think, had a chat about it afterwards and have settled their differences. Casper Brotner took a rather lonely 5th place for Old Dudes in Cars, ahead of Yavi Sierra, who started from the very back of the field but made his way through to a 6th place finish, and Daniel Shilcock rounded off there with a non-finish. Coming to the Pro class, and here we can see in the second of our classes, it was Mikey Story for Dexterous Motorsports, who just held off the intentions of Krista Halzoy all the way to the finish, and an incredible battle between the two of them. And Halzoy for Tractics Racing there taking the run-up spot, gutted not to win, but I think happy about the fact he took second, just ahead of Jack Barker. And what a result for him. That's going to give the youngster a huge amount of confidence for Made for Racing, as he now takes his first podium and takes that into the next round, knowing that the Lamborghini and him are compatible. UKSimRacing Price's Cy Ansley finished in 4th, just ahead of Miracle MA70 Esports' Christian Maltrek, who hunted, he hustled, but in the end he could only get 5th and not 4th, but he was 2 seconds clear of Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars Blue, who managed to fight his way past both Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Mansell and Pegasus Sim Racing's Ivan Sander. A further 10 seconds behind it was Christian Furs for Panda Spit Motorsports, and then we did have a sizable 30-second gap to SRI 7 Privateer Ryan's Noah Blackwell, with then non-finishes for Mark Collicott, Nathan Scott, Stephen Donnelly, and Giles Philipp. You got to feel for Giles Philipp. He's not having any luck this season so far, but hopefully next round he will. And speaking of luck, when the Premier class, he makes his own luck to Samuel Clark, because today he wasn't lucky necessarily, but he definitely was absolutely resilient and determined to make sure he picked up another win, and the Dexterous Motorsports driver doing exactly that by 4.6 seconds. We do see Hendrik Zilke there in second for Old Dudes in Cars Blue. A brilliant effort from him indeed. One of the stars of today that went under the radar was the Mercedes driver, who very quickly found his pace midway through the race and started to overtake drivers both on circuit and in the pits. Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing, he brings on home an absolutely comfortable podium there in the 199 BMW, ahead of Ricardo Luis Pereira, with the SRI Privateers of the Caribbean driver, and then having to settle for 4th. Joe Sparrow finished in 5th there for JSD Motorsports in a bit of a back and forth day today, ahead of Old Duty Cars Daniel Pays, and then it was a lap down to both Austin Graff and Alan Lever, with 5 laps down to Luke Sherlock after that shunt with what was Simon Hartley towards the end. He'll be gutted because he was looking forward to potentially what would have been a 7th or 8th place finish. But it wasn't to be, but at least he brought the points home. And then we did see retirements for James Connolly and Wayne Douglas. And then lastly, coming to the Evo class, and as we can see here in Evo, Joel Loudon takes his first win for SRI 7 Privateer Ryan, and what a win by 3.7 seconds over Simon Hartley for DWR with SimCoach Setups, who somehow survived minus a rear wing here at Catalunya, and that is definitely hard. Indeed, given his door number, I would wonder whether he's the next James Bond in the way he mastered control of that car when many would have perhaps given up. Joseph Preston took third there in the number 94 for JST Motorsports, and a great drive from him for his first podium of the season. He should be proud of that one, because that definitely was one of the drives of the day, much like Loudon's win, with Jordan Lee Jones there, settling for full for DWR with SimCoach Setups. Gutted about the pit stop, I suspect, but the flip side of the coin being the Aston Martin drive definitely showed pace here today, and podium pace with it. It was then double the time away from the leader to Richard White, 56 seconds down for UKSimRacing Mansell, in a bit of a frustrating day today, and really Mexico's frustrations have boiled over here into Spain, with Edward Berry also having a nightmare day, and his championship lead will have been obliterated with that 6th place finish, and he'll be brought right back into the pack. From the UKSimRacing Hill driver, it was then only a first second to Darren Giacovelli, with a lap down to Carl Tivoli, 3 laps down to Thomas Weston, and 4 laps down to Daryl Giacovelli, and unfortunately an early retirement from the race for Alex Brown there for Slow and Steady Racing, the car in too much of a state of disrepair. But that completes our rundown of the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, and as the circuit falls silent here in Spain, well, there's only one thing we can do now, and that is wrap up. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid, or just wanting to know more about the SimRacing International community, or everything in between, well, we do have plenty ongoing, and the best place to go to is the official Discord, link at the bottom of the screen. And if you join the Discord, you can get in touch with the admins, the staff members, and all the drivers, and potentially get yourself out on track. And speaking of what's on track, of course, we currently do have Season 10 of the Trophy.ai sponsored GT3 Championship, and that is the official weekday championship, which does run on Thursday evenings. We, of course, also have what you've been tuning into today, which is the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship, which runs on Sunday evenings. And on alternative weekends, on Sunday evenings, we also do have the America's GT Challenge Championship. And that is the multi-class series, which involves GTEs and GT3s. Indeed, an absolutely brilliant combination at the two out of the circuit. You wouldn't think it would work, given their pace differences somewhere between 2 to 4 seconds. Per lap, depending on the circuit, but it definitely does work, and it's delivered some absolutely incredible endurance racing action so far this season. We also do have a new season of racing on the way on Monday evenings at some point in the future, but if you don't want to pay to be on the grid, or you're looking for something far more casual, well, we can recommend you join our free-to-join Practice League, which runs on both Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International, and why wait? Why not join today and get yourself on the grid with us? We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors for our leagues and series, who do include, of course, Trophy.ai, Carme, Modern Technology, SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential as a sim racer, the GP2 Group, and lastly, but by no means least, Motorsport UK's esports division. And we're very grateful to be continued to recognised here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. And well, long may that continue in our relationship with Motorsport UK's esports division. But now we look ahead, of course, ladies and gentlemen, and next time out, we've made our way to Spain, but now we'll make our way to the United States of America for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's road course. And whilst the racing for round number 4 will occur on that other Sunday, the 19th of October 2025, why not come join us as if it were live on Wednesday, the 22nd of October 2025, as we continue the story of the season. And well, the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya has definitely shaken some things up, but otherwise we've seen some constants. The constants in Elite: can anybody slow down the tide of Joe Nathan, who's gradually pulling away at the front? In Pro, Mikey Story has finally taken the championship lead, but he's got many a driver nipping at his heels, and many a driver who's finally found their pace, I should say, including Krista Halshoy and Jack Barker. In Premier, Samuel Clark is running away with things with 3 podiums and 2 wins in amongst those podiums. And as for Evo, well, it's anybody's guess who's leading now, because we've seen a completely new set of names take to the top steps of the podium. But for all that and more and how it continues, be sure to tune in next time at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where we could shake it up all again. But until then, we have been at the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, as hosted by SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141, or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.